Afghanistan is facing a deepening humanitarian crisis. 23 million Afghans are suffering from hunger, 1 million people are already starving, and 90% of Afghans already live below the poverty line. In recent weeks, we've brought you stories of families selling their children, of people, individuals selling their kidneys just to survive. We saw last week that funds frozen by the US government were going to be unfrozen to pay victims of terrorism. Critics say it adds more pressure on an already strained Afghanistan. And joining me live is journalist and author Hollie McKay. Hollie, thanks so much. We've been watching your amazing work for some time, bringing us what is really happening in Afghanistan. Just how bad is it?
It's an absolutely heartbreaking situation. The UN calls it the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. And honestly, in all my years of covering war zones, I really haven't seen anything as dire as Afghanistan right now. As before, people were able to have jobs with contractors, with the Afghan government, with the military. Those all literally went away overnight. So you can imagine the unemployment, you can imagine the desperation, and there really isn't any aid coming in, and there is no money circulating, and it's an absolutely tragic situation for Afghans that are stranded there.
It seems like when the West pulled out of Kabul, the world just simply forgot about Afghanistan. There is no money. Things have just got worse and worse. You're in the United States at the moment, but you have been previously in Afghanistan for many, many months. What's the material effect this is having on the ground, and where does it end up?
Well, people just simply cannot get their money out of their bank accounts. I mean, they have increased the limits a little bit, but people, even with any of their savings, they aren't able to access it. You're finding that people are on the streets. They're selling their belongings. I've never seen anything like it. You go to the public hospital there, especially, and the levels of malnutrition, and you're seeing mothers on the floor and there is absolutely no medicine, and it's an absolute helpless sort of feeling. And the fact that Afghanistan just so often isn't even in our headline anymore, and so people have forgotten just what we've left behind. And in my view, more people are going to die from this humanitarian crisis than died in the past 20 years of war.
I don't think many in the West can stomach the fact that the Taliban is now the ruling government after fighting them on so many fronts for 2 decades. But is this the reality? Is it your view that President Biden and even our Australian government here need to realise that this is the reality now, that they're going to have to work with with the Taliban, whether they like it or not?
Yes, I think so, Laura. And to be fair, the US has been negotiating in Doha with the Taliban for the past several years. So to sort of turn a blind eye to it now doesn't make a huge amount of sense to me. And when I really look at the root causes of how we got to this situation, a lot of that did come from the corruption that happened under the previous government, where the money never went to where it was supposed to go. So withholding the money now, as opposed to trying to put in mechanisms to stop any corruption from happening again, or to ensure that the aid does go to where it's supposed to be, I really think that is something the US has the power to work out, and Australia as well, to work out diplomatically, because just sort of walking away from it and hoping that it will fix itself, that's just it's not a reality. And we talk about very important things like the fact that the Taliban have stopped secondary girls from going to school, and they're all very upsetting situations. But when people can't feed their family, when they can't get life-saving medicines, those are the things that we need to put really at the forefront right now. And I don't see a way out of other than working with the Taliban to some degree. But even with these frozen funds, they were supposed to be put in a trust fund where it was sort of circumventing the top brass of the Taliban. So there needs to be mechanisms in place where we can ensure the aid is going to the right people, rather than to the pockets of corrupt politicians.
Hollie, thanks for shining a light on it. We love your work. We'll speak soon.
Thank you for caring.